Today I'm showing off the Socom Bravo by Microtech. We have an M390 steel blade, which is a high-grade steel designed for injection plastic molding. Eventually got into the knife world. Titanium handle with a carbon fiber inlay. This is a collaboration with Reich Knives out of China. Reich does some insane machining. As you can see here, this is essentially a work of art. There's some beautiful work in here. I do have a few issues that I'm not a big fan of. For one, this screw fell out on me. It went missing. I was lucky enough to find it and put it back, and then in there, I Loctited all the screws after that. Probably my favorite action out of my knives. I do have a few other knives that are the Socom design. We see this groove here for our thumbs for deployment, which is fantastically useful. Today we're going to be looking at this one specifically. Overall length with these calipers, I'm getting 9.019 on the overall length from tip to tip, like so. Closed, I'm getting 5.028. It's a fairly large knife. I like big knives though, so that's not a problem for me. It is thick in the pocket. Let me get something that you can read a little bit easier here. At the clip, we're getting that. So it's almost an inch thick in the pocket, which is quite a bit. At the pivot, we're getting 0.614. So almost an inch up here in the pocket. And this does stick a little bit out, but it's pretty solid. So not much to complain about there. There's some nicks in this one because one of my kids, I think, took a file to it when I was doing some woodworking. We can see some etching here for grips. So when it's in your pocket, you have some nice grip there to grab out. One thing is you can see where that groove goes through the carbon fiber. It's not doing that up here, which I thought was a little odd and not very continuity aware, but it does make it smoother in the hand. So they probably did that for little princess hands that might get uncomfortable with that. This is obviously tanto edge, full serration. This is the box it comes in, which is pretty. Other than that, the blade stock thickness, let's show you that. The thickest part here, pretty close to a 1/4 inch. It's a thick boy. There's some milling here to reduce weight, a little contouring back there. One other thing I might nitpick about this is this finish in the middle especially is not as polished as the other edges. So in there it's a little more coarse, and you will get particulate that will sit in there and cause little light rust spotting. I have slight spotting on this one right now. Sometimes you can just rub it off with your thumb, or you can just get a rust eraser and knock that out real quick. It's a pocket tank. One thing I plan to show on other knives that are more designed for slicing is the thickness behind the edge. This one I'll go right to the middle, and we're getting about 0.124, roughly an eighth in the middle here. So it is thick. There's no compound grind, so it's just a straight angle going back. Cutting geometry is kind of a rabbit hole you can fall into, but just beware, it's not the sliciest, but it's a tank, absolute tank. If you want to show some of the cutting, this is essentially a pocket saw. It just eats up wood, goes in there like a monster. I don't have the most stable table, but you can see here, it just digs in there. I've used this quite a bit for woodworking. If you're trying to remove material quick, when you're not distracted by a camera and being more safe, you can really chew out some wood and make something pretty quick with this guy. I bought this on 4/15 of 2022. I paid $352. One thing you do get on the standard Socom Elite that you don't get on the Bravo is a glass breaker. This is a carbide tip glass breaker. This does not have one. Not the end of the world for some people who don't even want it, but I do like having one. If they added one, I think it would be kind of cool, but they do have a lanyard hole here. This is tip up carry, so tip is faced up, this is tip down carry. So there's different orientations. This is a whole different knife, but just be aware of that. Now, according to Microtech's website, this is 4.8 ounces in weight, and this is 5.3. I initially thought this was considerably more heavy, but maybe it's just more the substantial feel in your hand. This is an aluminum handle, whereas this is 6AL 4V titanium and carbon fiber. Carbon fiber reduces a lot of weight, and there's quite a bit of milling going on here. But this feels more substantial in the pocket, whereas this kind of disappears in there. Not that that's a small knife, but also something to be aware of if you're sensitive to weight, unlike me. And the blade length is 4 inches. Comparing clips between the two, this is almost an inch thick because of that gnarly big old clip. This is much thinner, rides a lot better in the pocket. Similar measurement, but it just feels much better in the pocket. Compare the two. This is 0.8 something, 0.83. So this just sits a lot better in the pocket when you're out and about doing stuff. And then at the thickest back here, we're about 0.541. So this rides a little bit better in the pocket. If you're concerned about that, and this being black blends in much better, this will catch some eyeballs, which may or may not be an issue for you. This also sticks out quite a bit in your pocket, about that. That's about what you see out of the pocket. With here, you're seeing about that much, which much more discreet, personally, in my opinion.